first flight was on NASA's Crew 4 mission in April of 2022. Axiom 3 is the second reflight of this Dragon. There have been 12 Dragon crew missions to date, 8 with NASA astronauts and 4 with private astronaut crews. Dragon unlocks new research opportunities that ultimately impact life on Earth. For us, these Dragon missions are important for safety.
デスクトップの音入ってたわ。ごめんごめん。リアいきなり英語うまいみたいになっちゃった。ごめんごめん。はい、始めていきたいと思います。今日はアクショム3の配信です。はい、ちょっとギリギリなんですが始めました。今から地球に向かって帰ってくるカプセルが見れるのではないかなと思うところで、ちょっと見ていこうと思いますよ。さてさて、今日はですね、アクショム3というこの間打ち上げたやつの民間の宇宙飛行なんですけど、あれがこの間2日ぐらい前に、ISS から分離をしまして、今日ちょうど今地球に帰ってきて、よいしょ、海にスプラッシュダウン降りていくというところになります。はい、ではちょっと時間が時間がすごいギリギリだって申し訳ないんですけど、とはっと始めていきますね。ちょっとなんかコメント欄の反映がうまくいってないので、読み込みもう一回だけさせてもらおうかな。おいしょ。では、始めます。ちょっとリアしか出てこないけど、いきます。では、ピッピッピー。ショッ !5、4、3、2、1、0! スプラッシュダウンこんばんすーということで始まりました。薄いクリアです。どうもこんにちは。はい、北海道から脱出しまして、そう、脱北。でね、今ね、ちょっと本州にいるんですが、急いでやってます。頑張ります。アクショム3に見ていきましょう。ピコン。あリアにかぶっちゃったじゃないですか。よいしょ。ちょっとミスったじゃない。リアにかぶると思ってなかったわ。そんなにはしごが良かったの。さて、今はですね、この間ついてたトランクルームっていうところをね、取り外し終わっていて、で、地球軌道離脱の燃焼も終わっているところです。それで、そろそろ、ブラックアウトロスオブシグナルしてたかなさっき。コマンダーのマイクから通信ありました。って言ってるな。見れるといいけどね。帰ってくる。パラシュートとか見えないのかな今回。見たいな。どこに押してくれるかな気になるね。スプラッシュってこと合ってるもう頭ぐちゃぐちゃよ今日。5分のブラックアウトって言ってるね。合ってます。待って待って、リアの上にこれか。おいしい。クルードラゴンスプラッシュダウン。この間ね、カーゴドラゴンって書いちゃったんだよね。荷物扱いしちゃった。ロスオブシグナルの23分。今からロスオブシグナルなのかなちょっと全然追ってなくて、わちゃわちゃして、今ただ見てるだけなんですけど。地球再突入の時にプラズマに包まれて、 通信ができないタイミングがあるんだってさ。でそれがそろそろ起こるんだって。あとじゃあちょっとみんなに聞こえてなかった画面の音入れますね。はい。どう聞こえた？
Walter engaged with the Italian Prime Minister.
音量の調整もよろし
Marcus
く。
spoke at the European Space Conference, and MLA spoke with Melissa Navia from Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Also, the AX3 astronauts performed 56 different experiments, including
今日
studying
配信
metastatic
短め
breast
に終
cancer
わりたい気持
organoids
ち。
for the
先に言っと
Stanford
かないと
Stem
絶
Cell
対長引
Institute.
くからね。
And we were told the crew was able to see microgravity-induced changes in organoid growth versus how they grow on ground.
これだけでパッと見て分かんない人もいるから今日のポイント書いておくか。
This crew did on board the International Space Station, but all really awesome. It's great to see that they also incorporated some outreach events throughout all their science experiments that they had to do while they were working there. So just incredible crew.
Oh yeah, it was an amazing mission. They accomplished all their mission objectives from media outreach, like you mentioned, Jesse, to all of the science research that was done, and to be able to come back and say, we did it all. That's an amazing feat. And this, like we mentioned at the beginning, this is a mission of firsts for so many countries, for so many agencies. But there's one crew member that we have not gotten to talk about, and she's on board. And her name is Gigi. She is a critical crew member and aspect of the mission. That's right. Our fifth crew member is our microgravity indicator, Gigi. This is a long-standing tradition in spaceflight and was continued on AX3. And this tradition is having an indicator inside the spacecraft to provide a visual reference for when the crew has reached weightlessness. So as the fifth crew member of AX2 and now AX3, Gigi's mission is to inspire children around the world to learn about space. Gigi is a Build-A-Bear teddy bear wearing Axiom's Axiom U spacesuits, just like the ones we are currently building for NASA astronauts to wear on future Artemis missions to the moon. You can get your own full-size, flight-ready Build-A-Bear crew member for all your missions at home. As you can see, she's ready for every adventure.
The zero-G indicator is one of my favorite parts of crew missions, so very awesome to see Gigi on board with the crew. And speaking of spacesuits, the spacesuits are very unique and custom designed, and you can see there on your screen. They have a 3D printed helmet, and this is actually all a single piece. Everything is connected together. The suit with the helmet is all a single piece, and this suit is actually made to fit with the seats. So these are custom suits to the astronauts, but also the suits and the suits and the seats are customized to match each other. And they're really an extension of the Dragon spacecraft. They essentially can provide, nitrox and cooling just as the cabin capsule of the Dragon spacecraft. So very cool, very unique spacesuits that we have here.
説明してくれる
Yeah,
超
and I think
激
those
レアな
suits
気がするんですけど、
really
あんま
highlight
り
an
なくない
essential
今までに
element kind of what is making days like today, days like launch, and flying these missions so
敏
important.
感だっ
It's
ていう
the
のもあるから、ちょ
attention
っとエン
paid
タ
to
メ
the
に寄ってる
crew.
感じしますね、
It's
少
an
し。
autonomous
い
vehicle,
つもは
but
なんか
you're
NASA
going to
ミッ
be
ションだ
all,
から
as
と
we
結
saw on
構
AX3
説
there,
明
right? It had a
と
very
してる
long
感じなん
uphill.
だけど、
They have a very long downhill. You want to be comfortable during
こ
that.
の偉大なジェシーちゃん、
And
めっ
those
ちゃ
suits
可愛いのよ。
demonstrate
あ
that
のね、
ability to,
い
get
つも
crew
このね、ロ
comfortable,
ケットのね、ネッ
have
クレス
their
をしてる
have
の
it
可愛
customized
い
to
ぞ。
to
ず
their
っとしてん
bodies
のこの子。
for their mission.
可愛い。
And I think just the suit
可愛い。
itself, like you said, it not only looks cool, but it's incredibly functional.
Exactly. And speaking of functional, we are just about under a minute away from that expected loss of signal. So the crew will be going through this blackout period here for about 7 minutes. Again, it's expected.
ピャーって光りながら流れ星になって降りてくるところが見れるかもってところが次の見どころ。その後パラシュート展開して帰ってくるかもっていうかもじゃないか帰ってくるのが見られるかもってとこが次のポイントになります。はい。
Once we're at about 5:23 a.m. And have that expected acquisition of signal, you may hear some comms of the core calling out to the crew just to check to see when we do have that connection again.
どうなってんだろう。
Right, and we mentioned earlier, this is a very dynamic day. There's a lot of elements through the day that carry us from, we already experienced undocking a few days ago, but from basically the moment that they've committed now to deorbit and reentry, from here on out, it really is paying attention to these timelined events, the loss of signal that is expected, the acquisition of signal that we have a known time to be pinging crew and seeing how they're doing, followed immediately by a lot of very dynamic back-to-back events, right? We're looking for the drogue parachutes to deploy. We're looking for visual confirmation of the vehicle coming in, and then ultimately followed by splashdown and recovery. It's going to be a very dynamic day.
Yeah, it's getting really exciting. We're just under 15 minutes from their splashdown. The crew's been in space for about 23 days or so, and they're almost back home on Earth. Again, if you're just now joining us, at this point we are in the communications blackout period, which is expected to last approximately 7 minutes due to the plasma formation around the spacecraft. During this time, no vehicle telemetry is received by mission control or the recovery team, and no external commanding of the vehicle or voice communications is possible. As a reminder, Dragon is designed to fly itself and continues to autonomously use Draco thrusters to orient itself during reentry. During reentry, the vehicle will be slowing down from orbital velocity, which is approximately 17,500 miles per hour. The top temperature Dragon will experience upon reentry is about 3,500 degrees. So it is experiencing some really high heat. We did talk about, the suits being an extension of that spacecraft. The capsule cabin is being cooled with nitrox, but also the suits are also being cooled with nitrox. And this is to help keep the crew comfortable as they're going through this very hot period of time. Again, that's 3,500 degrees on the outside of the vehicle. So they might start to feel a little bit of that on the inside of the cabin, but that is what the flowing of nitrox is for, is to keep the cabin cool while it's going through this hot period.
Right, and it highlights an essential element of what you need for today, right? That flight suit is a very critical element for their trip home, and so keeping them not only comfortable, but also just that physiology in check. That life support system is doing its work with that nitrox, like you said, to keep them cool, keep them comfortable, and it is an extension of the vehicle. But with that type of dynamic day, it's very critical that suit is performing its function, and we're looking forward to getting crew home at the end of this.
Yeah, we still have about 4 minutes left in this blackout period, and the crew is expected to splash down on the Atlantic side of the Florida Panhandle, off the coast of Daytona, Florida. And we do have our recovery vessel Shannon on that side of Florida, which is currently waiting for the crew to splash down and will begin their recovery operations to recover the crew. Once they splash down in the ocean, we will do some safety checks, but then the recovery crew will start to make their way to the capsule and start performing recovery operations.
Right. Yeah, and at this point, during this blackout, like we said, when we come to acquisition of signal, there's certain things that we're looking for, and one of those is definitely going to be a visual cue of that vehicle coming back in, followed by other visual cues like the drogue chutes deploying, and then followed by those main chutes. And I think that's a really cool system, but it's also very essential to get that crew going, or the vehicle moving from the speed that it's moving down to another comfortable place. It's like a staged approach to get them to a comfortable landing so that Shannon can go and perform safe recovery and breeding operations.
Yeah, I actually think it's pretty incredible that, while you're in orbit, you're traveling 17,500 miles per hour. But throughout the 7-minute period of reentry, it is slowing down the vehicle so much down to 350 miles per hour. That is an extreme slow down in such a short period of time.
Right.
And then the drogue and the main parachutes also keep the vehicle safe. It helps slow the vehicle down even more so that the vehicle can touch down softly on the ocean.
Right, and then once it does, those parachutes are jettisoned essentially, and those are going to be recovered by other vehicles. So again, as part of kind of the operations of what today is going to look like after splashdown, it's still going to be very dynamic. There's still going to be a lot of activity on the ground to ensure that we're safely approaching crew, that we're keeping them safe, but that also we are making as swift contact as we can to ensure that, now that they have traveled from 17,500 all the way down, coming back, and there you can see the recovery vessel, a live shot of that. We're going to see a bit more of that later today.
And we are just about a minute away from the expected acquisition of signal. Again, we are currently in a blackout period. Once we reach the point of expected the core will begin to call out to the crew to establish communication once again. So we may start hearing those call outs here shortly. But again, still in the blackout period, but expected to come out of that in just about a minute.
Exactly right. And you can see there on your screen MCC X in Hawthorne here in California, as well as MCC A in Houston, Texas, are constantly monitoring the situation that we have for crew coming back down. They are supporting crew throughout this entire
SpaceX comm check.
何時ぐらいですって言う、そういう説明はいつもしてないような気がする。してんのかな？
Loud and clear as well. Expect automated chute deployment.
あ、通信はできたっぽい。そろそろさ、でもさ、明るくこう見えてくるカメラとかないともう見れないかな。通信復帰したっぽいかな。
And we did hear that call out that we have confirmation of acquisition of signal, and you can see on your screen a live view of the AX3 crew inside of Dragon Freedom.
ドラゴンフリーダムの中にいるライブビューです。
Now we're just about 3 minutes away from drogue parachute deployment. And there you can see a live view from the ground watching Dragon as it's making its way back down to Earth, which is a really awesome view there.
Yeah, this is a beautiful example of exactly what we were just talking about during the loss of comms phase. Upon acquisition of signal, we are looking for good comm checks with the crew, which we got, and visual confirmation of the vehicle, which we got.
Dragon SpaceX, GPS has converged. Expect nominal drogue deploy altitude.
Copy, SpaceX.
船内はどれぐらいリアルタイムなんだ。固まってんのか、それともリアルタイム映像なんかよくわかんない。あ、これは普通の映像ですね。さっきのが白黒なのが IR、赤外線カメラの映像。あ、
just a couple minutes away from drogue parachutes deploying. And just under a minute after the drogue parachutes deploy.
気になる気になる。乗ってみたいな。
Oh, and currently you can see on your screen that they are reconfiguring their seats, so you can see that seats are rotating down, and that is happening live right now in preparation for splashdown.
いやー、サンダーバード1号みたい。
Yes. Brace for drogue window.
来た来た来た来た来た来た来た来た来たぞー。
And looked like the seat rotation was completed, and now they are ready for those drogue parachutes to deploy.
おー、光ってる光ってる。この後ドローグシュートとパラシュートを開いて降りてきますよ。
What you're seeing on your screen is a live view of the Dragon capsule returning back to Earth. And there you can see the drogue parachutes have deployed. A cool view from the capsule itself. Shortly after, we should see the 4 main chutes deploy here.
地上からの観測映像ですか？うん、海上からの観測映像ですね。海から。
And excellent call-outs there.
これがドローグシュートってやつかなって、この後にもう一個大きいパラシュートが開くはずです。
And we do have visual confirmation that the drogues have deployed. Now just waiting for the 4 main parachutes to deploy as well.
来た。はい、ドローグシュートっぽいで。
And there you can see on your screen. 4 mains have deployed. They will begin to slowly open up and help slow the vehicle down.
まだ開いてないか。行くぞ、開くぞ。
The vehicle is
クラゲみたいで可愛いん
approximately
だよ。
moving at 119 miles per hour.
来た。
And the main chutes deployed at 6,500 feet. And there's an awesome view from the capsule itself, looking up at the 4 main
Visual on
chutes.
4 healthy mains. and descent rate nominal.
Copy, we source of the 1,000 meters.
4つのね、
Copy
ふわ
1000.
ふわがあります。クラゲ最高。ね、クラゲさんみたいだよね。しかもちゃんとさ、色もさ、オレンジの消化器官みたいな感じに見えるよね。
And just a few minutes away from the Axiom 3 crew splashing down back on Earth
名
here.
前と同じだ。クラゲクラゲ。テンション上がってんね。この場所遅かった。大丈夫大丈夫。まだスプラッシュダウンしてないから。結構リオツイートしてないじゃん。一応ツイートしとこう。
Copy 800.
And what you're hearing is call-outs of the ground and the crew on board, monitoring the altitude of the vehicle and the crew as they're making their way back down to Earth.
600 meters.
柄が違うねって確かになんか見分けられるようになってたりするのかな ?1、2、3
And we're
みた
just a
いな。
couple minutes away from splashdown. Landing in water is simpler, therefore more reliable than
肉眼では見られる普
landing
通
on
の
land.
賢いの普通の
And
写
there you
真
can
来た。
see an
写真じゃない
awesome
な動画来た。
view.
作成まで結構時間あるんだ。そうだ
The
ね。
Dragon
結構ふわふわしてる
capsule,
時間はあるか
Dragon
も。
Freedom, carrying AX3 as
落下
it's
速度も速くなります。
400.
slowly making its way to splashdown.
Now, these are absolutely fantastic views that we got at
really
acquisition of signal, Jesse. It was incredible coming back from AOS to see those good comm checks, those good visual confirmations of the vehicle coming in, and then the visual confirmations of the first drogue chutes, which deployed beautifully, and followed by the main chutes. And additionally, we got to see crew even rotate their seats to prepare for splashdown. All of these are
200 crew brace for splashdown.
よろしく。というこ
Copy,
とで、
brace
スプラ
for
ッシュダウンします
splashdown.
よ。おー。3、2、1。スプラッシュ。あ、横向いた。来た。ダウン。
Splashdown.
結構ふわふわしますね。スプラッシ
Copy
ュダウ
splashdown.
ンです。
We are with you in 4.800.
Copy.
And an excellent sight to see. Welcome home, AX3.
アクショム3さん、ようこそ。
Arthur, all the
ウェ
observations.
ルカムホーム。綺麗に4つに開くんだね。
As you can see on your screen, we have visual confirmation
これ
of
が IR カメラのや
splashdown
つ
of
で
the
す。すごいよ
Dragon
くわかる。めっちゃ光
spacecraft.
ってる。
Dragon Freedom
Wow.
has returned home with the AX3 crew.
どんぶらこー、どんぶら
Dragon
こ
SpaceX, can you repeat your last call? It cut out for
ー。X3 ってことは民
post-splashdown
間主導で
observations.
すか？うん、これはね、完全に民間だね。飛んでる
Nominal.
方も民間だし、飛ばしてる方も民間ですね。
Some excellent views of the
ア
Dragon
メリカで
capsule
も
there.
着水なんだ。アメリカでも
The SpaceX recovery ship and team have
America
been
以外は？
waiting for Dragon splashdown, and they will now begin to make their way to the splashdown
SpaceX
location.
confirm an environmental assessment is not necessary.
SpaceX
めっちゃ焦げ
confirms.
てんね。
Not necessary.
回収も完全に民間？うん、スペース X が回収しますからね。スペース X です。水出てんのなんだろう。水飲ん
Good
じゃったん
comms
だ
there.
ね。
The teams have been ready and waiting
So
about 3 nautical miles away, so it's going to take them about 30 minutes to make their way
そういうの
to
ある
our
のかな？
crew
そういう
inside of
気候がこう
Dragon.
シュワーって出す気候とか、横からこう穴がつながってるとか。
And once they do approach, they will do some quick safety checks to make sure that it is safe for the crew to egress the Dragon vehicle. Then they will begin to
シューシュー出してるね。シュー。
prepare the Dragon capsule to be lifted back
シマエナガ
on
みたいだったの
or
になんか
onto
焼
the
け焦げた
recovery
ひよ
ship,
こみたいになってる。
which
ひよこ
they
に見
will
える
then
な、
open the
お菓子
hatch
のひよこ。
and the crew can egress from the Dragon capsule.
この後ね、
These are
回
some
収
great
船がこちらに
daytime
向かって、
views of
この
Dragon
どんぶらこを拾って、
splashdown. AX3 3 crew still inside of the Dragon capsule, waiting for their recovery vessel Shannon and recovery crew to come pick them up.
Yeah, this has been an absolutely picture-perfect splashdown, and these views are really highlighting that. And it's not just beautiful; it's an essential tool for ensuring that we keep eyes on this dragon, right? But you can't deny that being able to watch. Get confirmation of parachute deploy, get visual confirmation of the vehicle coming in, and then seeing that landing, in addition to commander's calls down to crew, all painted a wonderful example of a lockstep splashdown day, and it's been absolutely fantastic. You can see Dragon sitting there in the Atlantic with chutes deployed, and crew is comfortable and safe and healthy, and they are waiting now for Shannon to make first contact to begin the recovery operations. It's going to be, again, like we mentioned earlier, a lot of dynamic aspects over the next 30 minutes as crew makes their way, as ground crews make their way to Dragon. And then as they begin to prep Dragon for hoisting it into the vehicle.
And you could also see in the background, the camera has now tilted away, but you could see Shannon and 2 fast boats making their way towards the Dragon capsule, the recovery team on their way to help the crew.
Dragon SpaceX is go for recovery personnel to approach. Expect personnel alongside in approximately 1 minute. And on behalf of SpaceX, welcome home. Thanks for flying SpaceX.
何人乗ってんの ?4 人乗っています。打ち上げの時と、あと ISS の離脱の時とかね、前回配信してたので、もしよかったらそれを見てみてください。
Speaking of fast boats, that's pretty fast. They're just about a minute away, and you can see them now there live on the screen, the fast boats approaching very quickly.
Yeah, and like you said, it was faster than anticipated, but it's an example of when you have teams prepped and you have you've done your homework to know where crew's coming back. It's an example of how Axiom and SpaceX are ready to receive their crew back on land.
はえー、来たー。迎えに来てくれる側の視線でこれ見れるのって贅沢すぎない？これ。やばくない？いつもだって。
Getting close to approaching the Dragon Freedom spacecraft.
来る方を見るの初めてだよ、リオ。なんかさ、思い出したんだけどさ、前も言ったかもしれない。なんかね、
has already autonomously completed some of the safety inspections following splashdown, and now the recovery team will also perform a few safety checks. Just to make sure.
Dragon SpaceX request permission to come aboard via the display camera view only.
船がね、いっぱいいたんでね、あの時。野獣馬の船。
You can come aboard, Arthur, and just for your essay, all 4 crew members are feeling well.
一丁見たりたいという船がいっぱいいてね。本当にたくさん、ここの海域にわちゃわちゃっていたんだよね。4年前か、ありがとう。3年とか言ったから、編集してくれてありがとうございます。嵐の時はどうするの？嵐の時はそもそも着水しませんね。着水を試みませんね。
And there you can see the recovery team reaching out to Dragon.
こうやってやってるの。
They will actually climb onto the Dragon capsule, perform some safety checks to make sure that it is safe for the vehicle, for the crew members inside of the vehicle to egress, and then begin operations to prepare the capsule to be lifted back onto the, not back onto the recovery ship, but onto the recovery vessel once the recovery vessel is there.
Exactly right, Jesse. And with that call to the crew on Dragon, with a great live view there of inside the Dragon Freedom capsule, we heard MLA call that all 4 crew members are feeling good. They're feeling well. They're feeling healthy. So this is fantastic. That first fast boat made good initial contact, and like you mentioned, is ready to kind of press into the next phase of operations here as we pull that Dragon back into the recovery vessel. You can also see on your screen the second fast boat, which provides redundant support to the primary fast boat, which made initial contact. In addition to helping just keep that area secure, right? Redundancy is a key aspect of spaceflight operations, not only on ground and in orbit, but also during recovery.
今回多分初めてドローン飛ばしたんじゃないかな。ね、そうだよね。なんか回収船からの視点はいつもそうだけど、ドローンからの視点こんなに
In addition to that recovery, they're also working on that parashute recovery. So we saw that Dragon had jettisoned its parachutes after deployment and after splashdown. And this fast boat, as well as another jet ski, are helping to recover that parachute to, again, keep that area secure to not inhibit any operations that are going to be underway while that primary fast boat's making contact and doing its work, but also while Shannon's coming up right behind them.
回収船よりも先にドローンを回してるのが初めてかな。今までドローンどうやってたかな、ちょっとわかんない。ドローンを使って、いつもこんな感じだったよね。回収船からの視点だった。これそうそう。これは大西洋
There's that jet ski passing by. Part of the recovery team.
うん、そうだね。
And again, what you're seeing here is a
フロ
live
リダ
view
沖。
of the AX3 crew inside of Dragon Freedom, now splashed down on Earth. The recovery team is performing their recovery operations.
フロリダの横です。
Again, just waiting for them to perform some safety checks. We did get some good comms earlier that the crew is feeling good after splashdown. They had a pretty dynamic adventure this morning. And now hopefully get to relax a little bit while they're, waiting for the Dragon lift onto the recovery vehicle.
Right, dynamic but completely according to plan. It was a beautiful execution of a splashdown day, and you can tell their crew is visors up. They're looking healthy and happy, and I think they're probably really looking forward to that first breath of fresh air.
自分の部屋くらいのサイズドラゴン。急流兵あったかな。車、ちょっとでかい車ぐらいはあるっぽいよ。酔いそう？宇宙で十分酔ってるから大丈夫じゃない？
If you're just now joining us, the AX3 crew has returned from space after being in space for about 21 days. They undocked from the International Space Station a couple of days ago and are now back on Earth. The recovery crew, again, performing their recovery operations. These are standard procedures. They're currently making sure that the vehicle is safe. Then we should see one of the crew members hop on board the Dragon capsule and begin operations to prepare the capsule for lifting onto the recovery vessel.
今回の人たちは本当に民間ですけど、結構なんていうの、空軍の人とか元宇宙飛行士の人とか結構いるんですよ。だから強強のんなんでね、多分酔っても大丈夫だと思いますよ。
This is an excellent side-by-side view showing on, basically this is still the dynamic phase of operations, right? Crews splash down, they're safe and healthy, their visors up. But at the same time, everybody still has a job to do.
民間で宇宙空間にISS みたいなスペースステーションを作ろうとしているような会社だったりする。すごい勢いのある会社。
In contact with ground crews here, with Core at SpaceX, and then on the left you can see as the primary fast boat has made first contact, initial contact with the Dragon Freedom after its splashdown coming in from space, and at this point they are maintaining that contact and just ensuring that the area is safe, that the vehicle is safe to continue those hoisting operations. So I love being able to see these views side by side to help everybody maintain that awareness exactly of what's going on outside the vehicle, but also in.
バミュラトライアングルの中かなって。バミュラトライアングルの中かな。ちょっと上な気がするけどね。 お、すごい。ガス検かな、これ。
There you can see on your screen that the recovery crew member there is doing some checks,
チェックしています。
some ordnance and hypergol
ハイ
checks
パゴールチェックしています。
at the
ガス
moment.
ですね。
Again, making sure that the vehicle is safe to approach.
ちゃんと
Then they can
安全に近づ
climb
けるか
onto the
のチェ
capsule,
ックを
begin
していま
rigging
す。
operations, and prepare the vehicle to be lifted onto the recovery vessel. Today is Shannon.
使ってる
Shannon is making its way to the
ガスが
recovery
ガス
zone
で
here.
この
But these fast
作業
boats,
中
and we did see a jet
してる
ski
時
also
に
with the
キャ
crew,
ベルがちゃんと
make their way a little bit faster and get the recovery process started sooner until the recovery vessel makes its way to the landing zone.
この船宇宙船の向きを変えるときとかに使っている燃料がヒドラジンっていうちょっと毒性のある燃料だったりするんですよね。で、ハイパゴールっていうのはそういうなんか自己着火性のある、そういうさっき言ったハイパゴールっていうのがイコールヒドラジンってわけではないんだけど、その燃料のことを言ってて、そういうのをちゃんと安全に近づけるかどうかのチェックをしていますって、さっき説明もあったし、いつもやってるこれは。はい、スーパードラコとドラコちゃん両方とも使ってるのがちょっと危険な燃料になるので、人体には影響がある燃料なので、その風にこうピピピって見て、ちゃんと安全に近づけるかのチェックをしていますということですね。大丈夫になったら紐かけて持って帰ってきます。燃料より安全にしてこの点手間を減らす必要もあるのかな。どうだろう。これがそんなに手間かどうかだよね。その使いやすい燃料に対しての。引き上げた後もチェックするはず。後で。こうやって安全確認しないとね、危なかったりしますね。で今回の、回収船は、さっき、シャノンって言ってたかな？確認しておこう。音聞こえなくなっちゃったけど、まだ言ってないかな。
What you're seeing is a live view of the AX3 crew inside of Dragon Freedom, patiently waiting for their recovery operations. They've made their way back down to Earth, and the recovery team is working their standard procedures in preparation for lifting the capsule out of the water and onto the recovery vessel, and then eventually will egress the crew for the first time in about 3 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, at this point, we're waiting for those ordnance and hypergol checks to complete.
Dragon SpaceX, hypergol sweeps, and unfired ordnance checks nominal. Rigging in progress. Approximately 2-5 minutes until capsule lift. Stand by for PMC with SpaceX flight surgeon.
OK。よし、じゃあ行こう。頑張れ。
Copy all our sir, stand by.
スタンバイ。お腹すいた。ご飯食べたい。ご飯食べながら。
And almost on call. That was an excellent call from crew to Dragon, saying that the hypergol checks are complete and the ordnance checks are complete, and they all completed nominal. So with that, we were able to proceed to the next phase of the dynamic operations, which allows rigging to begin, so that we can hoist Dragon Freedom into Shannon. And we also heard there that crew will be having their PMC or private medical conference with SpaceX. With SpaceX Medical, and just checking in on crew. But as we reported earlier, or as MLA reported earlier, this crew's feeling healthy and happy to be home. Their visors are up, they are monitoring their systems, and over the next 25 minutes, we should be able to get them on board.
着水しました。今の状態も書いておくかじゃあ。その後、 船。水、
And there you can see on your screen our recovery vessel, Shannon, patiently waiting for the crew and capsule to be ready for lifting onto the recovery vessel. You can also see on Shannon there is that landing pad there. That's because a helicopter is going to come and take the astronauts or the crew back to land. That's a much faster trip than, taking the recovery vessel all the way back to shore. So that's what that landing pad is for.
That's right. If you're just joining us, Axiom 3 crew has splashed down in the Atlantic Ocean at 5:30 a.m. Pacific time or 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. And at this point, we are waiting for that recovery, the recovery efforts to continue. SpaceX team has made first contact with the Dragon Freedom capsule and crew. Crew reported all nominal health checks. They're feeling good and excited to be home. And at this point, we are waiting for those rigging operations to continue to get Dragon onto Shannon, that recovery vessel, so that they can have their final medical checks and get on that helicopter, get back home, get back to land.
Yeah, I'm sure the crew's pretty excited to be back home. Pretty excited to take a breath of fresh air, as you mentioned.
Exactly. Right, excited to be home after, the 3 weeks in orbit, right? 23 flight days, 21 days, 18 days aboard the International Space Station, where they accomplished a suite of activities.
Dragon
SpaceX contract
やっぱメ
on
ディカルチェックと
Dragon
かもある
Ground
からね
Public.
なんか危ない状態だったら困るしね。回収船どれくらいの大きさ？ちょっと見たらわかるかな。人間がこれくらいで回収船がそれくらいなんだけど。
And Dragon, you're coming in choppy. We have pretty ready comm right now, so we're going to take some steps to reconfigure Dragon communications before we step into the PMC.
で、ここのとこまで持ってきますから、今から。
Copy, SpaceX.
自撮りしてる。まあまあね。
Some comms between the core, the crew, operations and resources engineer to the crew. And what you're seeing on your screen is the recovery team, again, a crew member on the capsule, beginning rigging for preparation of lifting the capsule out of the water and onto the recovery vessel.
ドラゴンから出てくると何になるの？龍太郎？タツノコ太郎？桃太郎じゃなくて。
This is really great that we had a daytime splashdown. We're getting some really excellent views of all of these operations happening.
It's a beautiful early morning for splashdown. The weather's looking fantastic. The local environment is looking fantastic for crews to perform these operations, right? We mentioned earlier that this is really a safety critical aspect of the mission. And one that's important to note that we talked about training earlier too, and this aspect of the mission is something that these crews train for heavily. This fast boat recovery team, the entire recovery team efforts, all train for their specific roles in today's operations like this. And when the weather is playing nominally with you like this, it allows for that to execute quite well. And so we're able to see these teams really execute kind of a picture-perfect recovery effort. Rigging is going smoothly, and they're progressing well into it at this point. And we're waiting for those next steps to be able to hoist Dragon into Shannon.
Yeah, you mentioned, training for these operations, throughout this entire mission, everybody's following standard procedures. The crew has tablets inside of the capsule with them where they can follow, their procedures, basically their instructions. And the recovery team does the same thing. They're following very standard procedures, going step by step, and making sure that they perform every step carefully and having verification of each one of those steps. So while it may look like they're just doing their work, they're actually, following very specific instructions.
Exactly.
And again, what you're seeing on your screen is a recovery crew member on board of the Dragon capsule, rigging the vehicle in preparation for lifting onto or hoisting onto the recovery vessel.
クルー4とアクショム2とアクショム3。いつもこの人ね、頑張って踏ん張ってんだよな。で、ここまで来てさ、飛び降りるんだよね、いつも。これみんながちょっと楽しみなんだよ、本当に。
And honestly, the recovery team must be just as excited as the crew. They're going to be the first people
you're absolutely right.
that they get to see when they egress the Dragon capsule. So this is a really special, I'm sure the recovery crew, probably really enjoys their job.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, to play such a pivotal role in these operations, right? Crew has been, from launch until now, they've been away from their friends and family and away from Earth. And to be that crew that helps greet them and ensure that they're safely brought in, right? Following the procedures, doing your job to make sure that this crew is getting safely brought out of the water and into the vehicle, and then be able to see them smile and see everybody smile at the end of it. It's got to be a wonderful fefeeling.
Yeah, I can't even imagine how exciting that must be.
ふわーってしてるもんね。上のこれが分かりやすいって言ってくれてありがとう。
Again, a live view inside of the Dragon Freedom capsule with our crew members of the AX3 crew. 見づらくなってきた。来た。このね、幕がね。 And there's a view of the recovery vessel. That is where the Dragon will be lifted out of the water and will sit in that little nest that you see there, that ring on the vessel.
I think it's a perfect name for holding a dragon. I think that was intentional.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
But right, it's a great view that kind of, to me signifies what Shannon's role in this operation is, right? Right now it's sitting and waiting while making approach, while the primary contact team is ensuring that rigging is, executed properly, but then also verified and checked, as you mentioned, part of the procedures prior to performing the hoist operation to get Dragon into its comfortable nest. And at that point, we have additional crew members, like you said, that we're going to be very excited to get this Dragon on board. But it takes time, and we've got to go a little slow, because slow is smooth, and then smooth is fast, and that allows us to get crew on board.
Yeah, and once Dragon is in that nest, we saw that it was near the end of the ship. It will actually slide forward to position itself next to a platform, which will be level with the hatch. So when they open the hatch, the astronauts can egress comfortably out of the Dragon capsule there.
Excellent service. That is a beautiful shot if you're just tuning in to see Shannon, the recovery vessel, SpaceX's recovery vessel in the Atlantic, ready to meet and greet and hoist the AX3 crew upon their splashdown today off the coast of Florida.
And for those wondering what this landing pad is for, again, once the crew egresses the vehicle, they will, do some safety and health checks to make sure that the crew is healthy. But then they'll board a helicopter that's going to land on that landing pad that will take them back to land pretty quickly. So they've got some great service, as you mentioned.
And what's excellent about this view, too, is you can really see a lot of aspects of these operations kind of play out.
Dragon SpaceX, comm check.
Loud and clear, SpaceX. On me.
Copy. We have you the same. We are transmitting through Shannon recovery vessel now, and with this, I'm going to try and set up the quick PMC with flight surgeon.
PMC?
Okay, standing by.
Mm-hmm.
Hearing a little bit of calm there between Core and Commander López-Alegría on Dragon Freedom, waiting to establish some communications so that they can talk with SpaceX medical surgeons. But during that time, crews on ground, or in the water actually, are continuing to make operations, operations to prepare Dragon for hoist into the recovery vessel Shannon. So you can see on your left there the initial fast boat that made initial covery and proceeded through rigging operations for the Dragon spacecraft. And the recovery vessel Shannon nearing or making closer approach to Dragon to begin the hoisting operations.
配車には時間かかるんだね。まあでも早い方じゃない？変なことしてない。変なことっていうか余計な時間全然取ってないし。宇宙から降りてきて30分で船の前でもうすぐにこうやって船にね引き寄せられるんだったら多分早い方ちゃうかな。
There you can see, as John mentioned, the recovery vessel is now
なんかもう
beginning to pull the Dragon capsule towards it.
紐引っ張ってるというかこう回収されてるね。
Dragon SpaceX, we are back on Dragon Ground Public.
2つこうついてる。回収船はドローンなのかな？回収船は人いますね。いっぱいいるよ、友人。普通に船。ここに人がこういない必要がないからね。すごいな。この視点から見られるの本当にすごいわ。くるくるしてるレーダー。なんか近づいちゃってます。ちょっと何その映画みたいな画角のカメラの動かし方。これリアルタイムでやっちゃうのずるすぎません？
I think what's amazing about this shot, Jesse, is it looks like it's all so simple. And the care and precision that has to go into this operation from all of the teams that you see, that really you can't even see in this shot, that are supporting this type of operation, is amazing. To allow for that hydraulic lift now to come down and begin this hoisting operation. All of this was a very tightly choreographed dance to get us to this point, and it's really exciting to see us getting here to where we're about to hoist Dragon into the nest.
Yeah, exactly. It may look easy, but it is, you know, a lot of training, a lot of effort, a lot of planning goes into these operations. And as you said, very exciting. The hydraulic lift is now down, and they will begin to start to lift the Dragon capsule here shortly. We'll lift the capsule onto the deck of the recovery vessel into the nest that you see there. That's that circular ring there on the deck. And again, once the Dragon capsule is seated...
Dragon SpaceX, approximately 5 minutes until capsule lift.
We copy, SpaceX.
Good update there, just about 5 minutes away from lift. Again, once the capsule is in that nest on the deck, that nest will actually slide forward to put Dragon next to a platform that will make it much easier for the crew to egress the Dragon capsule.
Right, and once they egress, they'll be greeted by SpaceX and Axiom medical professionals to just ensure that, you know, hey, we just want to make sure you're doing okay, everything's going all right, do those first initial checks, and then at that point, crew is able to step out and take their first steps too for the first steps in a number of weeks.
Yeah, very, very exciting. Again, very cool that the crew on board this recovery vessel gets to be the first to greet the crew after they've been in space for a few weeks.
Dragon SpaceX, brace for capsule lift.
Bracing.
飛んだー
And a nice big jump into the ocean for the recovery crew.
Nice big jump.
Completing their rigging operations.
結構する引き上げんね
And Dragon Freedom being lifted onto recovery vessel Shannon.
そして引き上げです Nice big jump これで見どころなんですよすごいね毎回スピ釣れました
I love that they mentioned to brace for the lift.
Yeah.
You could see that the vehicle is moving and swaying a little bit, but I'm sure it was nothing compared to re-entry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Crew's had a lot of dynamic operations associated with today, and this is one of the final ones. There's a few more that have to go into play before they're back on land. But this moment of getting them finally back out of the water and into this nest situated while they're comfortable is a wonderful moment for the AX3 crew.
いや本当にこんなねすごい作業なのにね全世界に放映してんのすごいと思うよ
And a great
この
choreographed
作業を
lift
放映したく
there.
ないじゃん現場マン的にはさなんかちょっと嫌なことしたらさ
Gently
怒られたり
setting
する
down
じ
the
ゃん
Dragon
Yeah.
capsule
これ
onto the
放映
nest.
してんの本当にすごいよ
It's important for this point too, right after that lift, to kind of orient it just right so that it's ready for that translation maneuver you talked about, while also ensuring that crew is staying in a comfortable, well-oriented position so that egress operations are as smooth as they can be.
いつの間にそんなに増えたんだってくらいかかってるねあの忍者が全部やったのかすごープレミアホームページの役員もにっこり笑っちゃうよねあの表情差分
Yeah, this gives you a good view of that hatch that the crew is going to egress from. You can see that it's pretty much in the middle of the capsule, so moving it towards the platform, that platform will be just at the bottom of that hatch. And that hatch has been closed since they left Earth.
SpaceX, welcome aboard the recovery vessel. Recovery personnel are completing final checks. Stand by for translation to the egress platform.
はいチェックチェックチェックしてくださいこれ多分ヒドラジンがよく出てくるこの穴に突っ込んでてなかったかな今ピコンエアベースアンポット入れない足のフィルマがないからねほらチェックしてるチェック
good calls there between core and Commander López-Alegría to confirm that crews that we are preparing to press into the egress phase of today's operations. But yeah, Jesse, you mentioned that side hatch that they'll be coming out of hasn't been opened in a number of weeks, and that's because when they're on orbit, right, they're using the hatch that's under that nose cone, the docking hatch, to translate between their vehicle and ISS. So once they close that door on launch day, it doesn't open until today.
And I'm sure the crew is very excited for that side hatch to open.
Oh, yeah.
We did hear some comms talking about this, but the crew, the recovery crew there, is doing some last safety checks now that the vehicle is on the deck of the recovery vessel prior to the translation motion of moving the capsule towards the egress platform.
Ampato わかんない。なんか画面じゃないか。なんかコメント少し遅いかったりするかな。はい。ガスチェック確かしたはず。してて、その後なんかちょっと奥に押し込む感じになります。画面のこっち側にこうぐーっと動きます。その後、デッキがあるんですよね。鉢がここにあるじゃないですか。人間の高さがこんな高さじゃないですか。ちょっと高いんよ。一つちょっと一段階上なんで、デッキの方に押し込んで、デッキの上で鉢が開きます。なのでここでは開きません。ちょっとこう、押し込まれてその先にデッキがあります。なんか階段というか。これ外しますね。高いは落ちるから1メートルは1メートルと言われております2メートルからは交差作業となりますね。現場系 Vtuber になっちゃうじゃん、なんか
Live view inside of the capsule that is on the recovery vessel, with the crew still inside, patiently waiting.
That's right. If you're just joining us, we're in the final phases of the recovery of the splashdown of the AX-3 crew, which splashed down back to Earth earlier today at 5:30 a.m. Pacific time or 8:30 a.m. Eastern time off the coast of Florida in the Atlantic Ocean. We're in those final phases of recovery efforts, which is the next step up being hatch open. This will be the first time that crew has exited that side hatch in over 3 weeks, or about 3 weeks, or 23 flight days and 21 days in space.
義務化され
Crew is currently in the Dragon vehicle, but on board the recovery vessel Shannon, as ground crews are still preparing some final tweaks and preparations to translate the vehicle into a position that crew can egress.
フルハーネスは体に合ったものを着用しもし落ちてしまった場合には大声で助けを呼びます。釣られているときは体にうっ血する可能性があるので足を十分に動かし固まらないようにしましょう。もし備え付けの足掛けの紐がある場合はそれを展開して足をかけてそこで休むようにしましょう。フルハーネス講習できんな誰も重要がないと思うけど。 なんでスラスラ出てくるの？常識だよ。ほらほら。当然でしょとか言っとくよ、適当なことをさ。この作業注意だからほんと。うん。エレン塗ろうと思ったから助かる。危ないよ、ほんとに。そう。はしごは登ってもいいけど、一番天板に立っちゃダメ。またがってもダメ。
The AX3 splashdown and recovery currently in progress. On your left-hand screen, you can see that the Dragon capsule, Dragon Freedom, is on board our recovery vessel, Shannon. The recovery crew is doing their final checks prior to the translation of the capsule towards the egress platform. The next event coming up will be side hatch opening up. And that will be the first time that the hatch will be opened since launch day. And the Axiom 3 crew will take their first breath of fresh air since boarding Falcon 9 at the start of their mission on January 18th. You can see the crew live on your right-hand screen inside of the Dragon capsule, again patiently waiting.
Right, ground crews are still walking through their procedural checks and verifications to ensure that Dragon is in a safe position to translate, and it looks like they have made that call. So you can see Dragon there translating now.
Very exciting. I'm sure the crew can feel that movement, and they're getting really excited for that hatch to open. There's that egress platform that we've been mentioning. You can see the recovery crew there just preparing the vehicle in preparation for that side hatch opening. And a good view inside of Dragon. We have the commander on the left-hand side, pilot on the right-hand side. You can see the displays there.
Dragon SpaceX, ground team is making final preps for hatch open. Stand by for side hatch opening.
Stand by.
Standing by.
And you can see those displays. Right behind that display is the hatch, and that is what the crew is looking at. So as soon as that side hatch opens, the crew will be able to see the recovery crew and the medical crew there waiting there for them.
Right, and these are those initial checks that we talked about. The first people that the crew is greeted by is by the medical teams too, just to ensure that they're doing well after their flight and after their return home. And they'll make some medical assessments and make sure they're okay. And at that point, crew is egressing the vehicle and onto that helicopter ride back home. And there is the hatch opening. Welcome home, crew of AX3.
Welcome home.
Now that side hatch is open, they are going to put a protective tool there to ensure that the crew is safe when they egress the vehicle.
あれ、中からの映像も。おかえりなさい。よく見えますね。
And their first human interaction with someone from Earth in the last 3 weeks.
It's a great example of even in this moment, right? The hatch is opened, crew is ready to get out. We're still taking our time to make sure that they're okay, that everything on board is as it should be, and at that point we'll begin crew one by one, leaving the their Dragon Freedom vehicle.
And this again is a standard procedure. Even when they're getting up out of their seats, it's very important that they are very careful. They've been in space for quite a while. And so the crew there will also, help them if the crew needs help, make sure that they're healthy and safe as they're egressing through that side hatch.
Exactly. It can be, a little bit different when you've been in space for a few days. Experiencing microgravity. So exactly right. That type of assistance, if needed, is there and able to be provided as support. That is an amazing view of the AX3 crew, waving, smiling, of course, as they have been since launch day on January 18th.
Some great waves. You can see their very excited faces there.
That was a wonderful shot. That was a wonderful shot.
ワンダフルショットですね。確かに本当にいいですね、皆さん。
Getting thumbs up there between ground crews and commander.
いい笑顔してるよ。
Now, as you mentioned earlier, this is MLA's second trip on the AX on Crew Dragon for an Axiom mission. So he's aware of this process and this procedure. I'm sure he's telling his crew, "Hey guys, we're gonna take our time." And it looks like they are ready to proceed with egress.
Yes, you could see MLA removing his harness. Again, frequent flyer, as you've mentioned, our first frequent flyer on Dragon. Super exciting.
Maybe he'll get to put a sticker on the inside of the capsule.
Oh, 出ますか？滑り台出たね、滑り台。これでスワッと出てこれるんでしょうかね。確か。こう、体を滑らすように出てこられますね。
And you can see there that they've installed basically a protective tool around the hatch, the side hatch, as well as a little bit of a ramp there so that the crew can safely egress. They are still in their suits and also need to protect the suits themselves. So we will make sure that the suits do not get damaged as they're egressing. You'll see that the recovery crew there will help them exit, may put their hand over their helmet just to make sure that they don't bump their head. And there's a few people there to help them, which is great.
Right, and like we mentioned, this is their first moment back on Earth, and over in 23 days, gravity is going to be a familiar but reminder of an experience. And so, coming out of this hatch, it's it may seem and look simple, but there are some nuances associated with it, with wearing that suit that you want to protect for, with also protecting for just your mobility coming back from this mission with its mission duration. You certainly want to be aware of their first time back in gravity in a while. So all of those translation aids really help ensure that when they're getting out of the vehicle, they're doing it as safely as possible, but also as comfortably as we can let them.
Yeah, exactly. And as we mentioned, you know, the side hatch is open, but they're not running out of their seats, right? They're taking it is step by step, removing the harnesses. They did remove some of the feet rests at the bottom of their seats. All of these things to make it easier for them to exit the vehicle.
Right, because at the end of the day with all of this, you want to make sure that you're comfortably getting out of the vehicle. And we saw there ground crews reminding crew, hey, just might want to close that visor just to be safe.
And to watch their, watch their head as they're getting out of their seat.
Exactly. Yeah. And we see the pilot making his way out of his seat and about to egress the vehicle. So Walter Villadei will be taking his first steps in 23 days on Earth. We can see Walter coming out of Dragon, having some assistance from ground crews. Visor up. And I do think I see a smile on that face. And a wave. A wave and a thumbs up. Walter is feeling good.
Welcome home, Walter Villadei.
Yeah, みんなもサムズアップしてください。おかえりなさーい。何時間経ったの？どうだろう、わかんない。何時間だろう。これに入るまでだから、でもふわふわしてたのがあって、何時間前から去ってなきゃいけないのかな？多分地球周回してるときはふわふわしてたと思うから。でも毎回結構直前だよね、割と。数時間前ぐらい。海外に行く飛行機よりは短いんじゃないかな。だいぶ幅があるけど、海外に行く飛行機って。でも何十時間とかじゃないと思う。数時間とかなんじゃないかな。
If you're just now joining us, we are watching the live egress of the Axiom 3 crew. And you can see that Marcus Want, our mission specialist coming out of seat 4, is getting ready to egress the Dragon Freedom capsule.
This will be Marcus's first steps in gravity in 23 flight days, 21 days in space, and 18 days aboard the International Space Station. So we're taking our time and making sure that he is comfortable and making sure that he's going to be safely egressing the vehicle. Welcome home, Marcus.
あー、出てきたー。
And again, visor up, and I think, of course, we're going to see Marcus smiling. Yeah, we are. Okay.
There we go. Some waves.
He's giving his wave. Marcus is feeling good. This is excellent to see. Crew's going to assist as we take those first steps back in gravity. And our third egress of the day, we have Alper Gezeravcı, the first Turkish astronaut to fly to space. Alper is looking good. He's excited. He's excited. He's ecstatic. He's happy to be home. He's giving excellent smiles and a great fist bump there. I love to see that.
Yay! おかえりなさい。
And last but definitely not least, our frequent flyer, Commander Michael López-Alegría.
Michael López-Alegría.
And even with that frequent flyer card, MLA is no stranger to this maneuver, but he is also taking his time, and he is looking good.
いけるいけるこれが強強だからな。
And welcome back, MLA. Excellent. It is wonderful to see all 4 crew members of AX3 egress comfortably and safely out of the Dragon Freedom that they've spent their time in for the last 2 days, certainly, but also just a number of days on this mission. But they're looking good, they're looking healthy, and it was wonderful to see. So.
Well, now that our crew are safely back home on Earth and getting the first checks by SpaceX and Axiom Space medical teams, we're going to wrap up our live coverage of their historic return. AX3 lifted off from launch pad 39A on Thursday, January 18th, and arrived at station 36 hours later. They spent over 21 days in space, 18 of those days on the International Space Station before undocking just over 2 days ago. And this morning at 5:30 a.m. Pacific time, they splashed down off the coast of Daytona, Florida.
And it has been an amazing journey. So once their first medical checks are complete, they'll catch a helicopter flight back to shore, where they will transfer to a waiting aircraft ready to take them to Houston. While this concludes the flight portion of the AX3 mission, much of the research portfolios that were performed on station will continue to be reviewed and analyzed over the coming weeks. So some of their studies will even continue over the coming days and months. So, Jesse, it's been an amazing time spending this desk with you from undock all the way through splashdown. It's been an absolute honor, so thank you very much. And to SpaceX, thank you for an incredible flight and taking such great care of our crew as we saw today and throughout the entire mission. To NASA and all the International Space Station partners who have enabled access to the orbiting laboratory and made the efforts of Axiom Space, Italy, Turkey, and ESA possible, thank you. We look forward to collaborating with you again soon with AX4. And all of you watching, it's been an honor and a privilege to share the journey of MLA, Walter, Alper, and Marcus to space and back again. So as we bring this mission to a close, we celebrate how the AX3 mission continues to demonstrate that the opportunities presented in microgravity have grown to include more countries, more institutions, industries, and individuals than ever before. So through missions like this, we are redefining the pathway to low Earth orbit and building for beyond. So be sure to check out axiomspace.com to learn more about flight opportunities available along our journey to the world's first International Space Station. I'm John Rackham, and we're signing off now with a welcome home to the crew of AX3.
And I'm Jesse Anderson. Thanks to everyone for joining us on another successful mission to the International Space Station. Be sure to tune in for our next human spaceflight mission, NASA's Crew 8, which is just a few weeks away. Check out spacex.com/launches for updates and for the schedule of upcoming missions. We'll see you again soon.
2月末にフライトがありますからね。はい、お疲れ様でした。終わった。終わったぜー。は しました。お疲れ様でした。イエーイ。ちゃんと帰ってくるとこすごかったですね。皆さんありがとうございました。今日のミッション楽しんでいただけましたか？グッドボタンをいっぱい押してほしい。せっかくいっぱい見てくれたから、ぜひよかったら忘れずに押せてほしいです。よろしくお願いします。振り返る時間とかしたいんだけど、ちょっとリア、急いで来ることがあって、もうこのまま終わってしまうかもしれないんですけど、いいですか？ちょっと本当はできない予定だったんですけど、頑張ってできるようにしたので、ちょっと今日はこのまま終わっちゃいたいと思います。すいません。やばいんです、入稿が。なので、お疲れ様でした。30回ぐらい押しておきます。30、偶数はやめといて奇数にしておいて。ありがとうございました。配信って嬉しかった。本当？ありがとう。今日本当になんかいい感じのね、あれで見られてよかったね。この、広かったよね、この、全体的に。あとすごい見やすかった。やっぱこの、これ強いわ。よし、じゃあ、これで終わりにしよう。はい。海坊主リア。はい、お疲れ様でした。わー。じゃあね。写真撮ってアップしといて。あ、リアライブっていう配信タグがあるから、ハッシュタグリアひながらライブカタカナでできるんで、もしよかったらしてください。では、お疲れ様でした。うん。海から生えてる。はい。お疲れ様ありんでした。また来てね。水平線に行けばいい。あ、ここ？こっち？こう海坊主や。マジでこれ海坊主や。やばいやばい。ちょっとやばい、これは。ちょっとでかい。あ、これはこれでいいね。美味しそうな、あんなところに美味しそうなクルードラゴンと回収船が。こうだな。はい、ありがとうございました。皆さん来ていただいてありがとうございました。また見に来てね。次の配信は未定ですが、子供の科学に乗りましたので、子供の科学ぜひご購入よろしく。あとは、終わり。もうない。いっぱいあるから、いっぱいありすぎてもうない。2月の14日に、リアの、スリムの配信がね、JAXA の方でありますから、相模原チャンネル、JAXA 相模原チャンネル見に行ってください。あとは、これ。ババン。あ。エンジェルライブ、2月18日にあります。見に来てほしいな。東京でやるのでリアルライブなので、ぜひペンナイト振りに来てください。よろしくお願いします。あと、有料配信もあります。安いです。2000円です。よろしくお願いします。ぜひぜひぜひぜひ。じゃあ、お疲れ様でした。バイバイ。おやすみ。ファブリックビューイング ?2 月15日はファブリックビューイング予定。今んとこ。あ、もうこれしかないわ。春樹だけどごめん。春樹が出て終わります。はい、じゃあね。バイバーイ。お疲れ様でした。クイック春樹。